Welcome, everybody. So it is 7 o'clock. So we are not going to waste any time tonight, and we're going to get right started. Sorry, I'm going to bing a little bit. If I silence that, then you guys won't be able to hear me. So I am so excited tonight. I have with me tonight my dear husband, a dear friend that I had hung out with in high school, Tammy Dugan. I have Samantha Park. Samantha Park went to church with us. And I have Heidi. Is Heidi on? Yep, Heidi. Okay, see Heidi. So, and Heidi on. Heidi Anderson is just a Plexus Sideline sister that we've gotten to know. We did a health and lifestyle group, and Heidi and I kind of just really connected in that group. And we've been really good accountability partners in that. So excited with the journey. But we wanted to jump on because today's world is so full of anxiety and depression. We are driven by right now a lot of anxiety and depression with everything that's going on with COVID and just all the riots and just everything happening in the world. But prior to that, even we lived in a very depressed society. When you look at medicine, and I've been in medicine for 29 years, the majority of my patients, I would say 70% or greater at times, were taking antidepressants or anxiety medications. So it would be nothing for me to have a team of 8 patients, and 6 out of the 8 patients would be on something for depression or anxiety. And for me as a nurse, that was very disheartening. That was very, very sad that we lived with a lot of people that were really just struggling and didn't know where to turn. Of course, we all turned to pharmaceuticals because that's all we knew. So as I started my Plexus journey for my Lyme disease, my husband started stealing my products. So he saw that I was getting well, and so he started snatching my products and stealing them. And all of a sudden, he noticed his mood improving, and then he started feeling better. He had been on antidepressants for a number of years, and he'll tell you all about it, but he was able to go off of all of that. So I am so excited when I can see that he's off those and he doesn't have the nasty side effects. So without ado, I'm going to turn it over to my husband, and then when we get to the end, I'll start going over a little bit of the products and tell you a little bit more about him. So this is my husband, William Konneker, and I'm going to unmute him and let him tell you a little bit of his story.
This is kind of one of those nerve-wracking things for me, because tonight I'm going to be quite vulnerable and kind of, the type of guy that typically you don't see. Most men, they want to be a man's man, and they want to be, the things that Hollywood tells you to be and the commercials on TV tell you to be. But I want to start by telling you that about 20 years ago, I felt like the guy in the commercial with a desk full of phones saying, I can do that. He says, we can do that. But I kept saying, I can do that. 20 years ago, we built a house, and Tammy and I worked diligently to pay off the home. I was running my own ag implement business. We had a dealership with 25 plus employees, their families always included in that. And product lines were not only agricultural, but we had ATVs, UTVs, commercial mowers, consumer products. We had a lot of people within the community and within the county that we served. We carried about $1.5 million worth of parts, and we had about $3 to $5 million worth of paid for inventories, be it farm equipment, side-by-sides, ATVs, commercial mower units. And every month on the 10th and the 20th, we sent checks out to all the people that we owed money. And also every 2 weeks, we sent each of our employee, or we handed our employee their check, and then sent all of the benefits that are included with an employee to the state of Illinois and to the health insurance people. Tammy was a full-time travel nurse, and I don't know if you know what that means, but she was working around 40 hours a week, raising a family, 3 children, usually gone 4 days a week in another town or city, not necessarily nearby. And we were living the American dream. And I want to add in there, we thought with an exclamation point. I lived on Pepsi and Snickers. And when Tammy was gone, the evening meal was bacon and eggs, and more bacon and eggs tomorrow. I was slamming down antidepressants, Tylenol, aspirin, and any pill that I could get a prescription for anxiety. And I mean, and one of my biggest fears was that at some point in time, I would be weaned off of my antidepressants and my anti-anxiety. I think that's a fear that all people have that are on depression medication or anti-anxiety, because it is, we think, the only way that possibly that we could cope. I even medicated as much as I was. I lived angry. I lived unhappy, and daily at wit's end. I mean, to be quite honest with you. And along with all of that, then came 2009 and a tick bite for Tammy, and 2010 brought a decision to sell our business. Tammy and I had searched during this Lyme process through the central United States for a doctor. We had bought every prescription and every compounded supplement or whatever they would prescribe. You've heard her say we probably spent $90,000 to $100,000 worth of. And basically, I can tell you that all they had to offer was more antibiotics, similar to me and my depression in that. And for a year and a half, a year and 3 months after 2010 through 2011, I was the store manager at my business, and I was an employee, and I hated it. I had ran a business for 30 some years, and I struggled with being an employee to the point that I said a prayer to the good Lord every morning. Lord, I hope they fire me. And that's a pretty powerful message to the good Lord. I couldn't function any longer as an ex-owner employee. And as I said before, Lord, I wish that they would fire me. One of the things that you don't want to do unless you're well prepared for surviving, and we had 3 big issues that we were trying to survive. We were 2 people trying to survive the Lyme pandemic, and 2 people with basically no jobs, and we were in the house mortgage panic. At that point in time, I became the nurse, and Tammy was my patient. If you can imagine that. And she still had a nurse that was angry, bitter, confused, and popping pills to survive my depression. From 2019 to 2009 through 2017, we coped. And I think that she coped a lot better than I did, because in 2017, Tammy started Plexus. And basically with the thought in mind being, to me, I'm giving up the ship. I'm not going to be on antibiotics, and I'm not going to do this any longer. I'm going to take whatever the good Lord has planned for me. Basically, her motto was sink or swim. And 14 days later, after she had started the Plexus product, my wife was this new woman in the house. She had her life back. She was joyful. She was no longer sleeping 3 days at a time or longer, only to get up and have water or a little bit of food or to be restroom bound. I, as she said to you, became a thief, and I also became a skeptic. And I want to tell everyone on here that one of the things that we men struggle with is being positive, and even positive when you have this whole scene playing out in front of you with a person who has been in bed for 9 years to a person who is up and ready for whatever life is bringing them. So I started stealing product from Tammy, which was the triplex. I would take my Slim when she wasn't around, or I would take the Bio Cleanse at Night and the Pro Bio and all of that. And I actually got to the point where I no longer needed the prescription medications. I desired, and I think that's another thing that Plexus did for me, is it actually brought me back to life and squared me up to the world in terms of what's going on with me. It made me research the Plexus product and what's in it. It made me want to know as much as I possibly could about depression, and it made me want to find a different way to fix myself. And when I say fix myself, the thing that I didn't realize that all of these years with the antidepressant, the anxiety medications, all of the antibiotics that are prescribed by the handful to everyone who goes to a doctor. If they're sick, they even guess at what antibiotic. And what I learned was that living on Pepsi and Snickers and bacon and eggs every night and no meals whenever you should stop and you should take the time to eat or whatever it is, I had grown a gut full of weeds. And I say that to you because there is such a connection between the gut, the brain, and how you sleep and how you respond to others, and all of the things that I was experiencing were suddenly coming back to life in me. Today, I'm still on the triplex. I've added in a few other things. I'm on nerve and ease, and I'm taking the vital biome, which makes a huge difference every day. I have tried, and you'll hear Tammy say this in a lot of her Zooms, that I've tried probably most all of the Plexus product. And I can tell you that if you're dealing with a husband who's stealing your product, get them on the triplex and the vital biome and the other things that maybe you do or don't have experience with Plexus products. But I can tell you, Plexus products will make a huge difference in the life of us skeptic husbands. And I can tell you that without Plexus, you would not be seeing my wife with a smile on her face. You would not see her excited and thrilled to be alive. And she actually wanted to give that to me, but being the skeptic that I was, I didn't want her to know that I needed that. I wanted that, but not with a product that is a MLM company. I don't know anything about them and any of that. And in the years since 2017, we have been at this business together. And I can tell you that it's the best thing that ever happened. And instead of having $1 million in parts and $1 million or 2 or 3 or 5 in equipment, along with the building and the land and all the bills that you pay on top for benefits and taxes, et cetera, at the time we started, it was like $39.95. We started a business for $39.95 with no inventory, no nothing. All we had was hope. And Plexus will not only bring hope, but it will also, particularly in today's world that we're living in, struggling through COVID-19, struggling through where the next paychecks are coming from, struggling through the everyday life as we know it, Plexus products are an answer, and we are proof of that.
Yeah. And what Bill didn't say was, like, Bill, he was trying to take care of me when I was so sick. And then he'd go and try to manage his 27 employee group. And it wasn't until like probably, 2 or 3 years into my line that the employees would say, we knew when you were having a bad day because we felt it at work. Like, Bill would come in and you could just see the stress on his face and the anxiety on his face because he didn't know if he was going to come home to find you alive or dead. And it was a very trying time in our life, with just him not knowing, not knowing whether I was going to have life or I was going to be well again. So the depression just really escalated at that point. He'd tried many things. He'd been on Effexor. He'd been on
Wellbutrin.
Wellbutrin was the big one that he'd been on for the longest. And he had been on those for probably 30 years since I've known him. And he's been off of everything for now 3 years. So for us,
and not once in any of the doctor visits, and I think this is true for most of us, no one explained to me any of the side effects. No one covered with me my diet. No question was ever asked. Basically, your 15 minutes or 30 minutes, prescriptions written, I'm out of there. And to believe that I was scared that I would not get scripts to keep me going, when the reality of it is that our health is determined by our gut health, which is connected to our immune system, which is connected to our brain. I mean, there's so much science in gut health today. And again, no conversation whatsoever, no questions asked. A lot of times they knock on the door one time, they come through the door, they ask you a few questions about how you feel, and they ask you this, they ask you that, and more scripts. Yes, is my whole process of thinking when I was slamming pills.
Yeah. Thank you, babe. I love you. And I'm glad that we're on this journey. I'm glad that we get to bring hope and happiness to people. So next up, Heidi, I'm going to unmute you. If you will please tell us your story. There you go. Okay.
There we go. Well, thank you, Tammy, for asking me to speak tonight. I really appreciate it. Like Tammy said, we've connected not only through taking Plexus products starting 1 year ago for myself, but I knew that a piece that I needed for myself was to be held accountable. And so she and a whole bunch of other nurses, I think I see Debbie Proctor was a part of that group too, who was on the call tonight. And so they provided meal plans, and I had to weigh in every week, and exercise plans too. And so that was a piece of my journey that I wouldn't be where I am today without that. So kind of why I came to the point where I needed Plexus. I probably was battling depression and anxiety for about 25 years, a little bit in middle school. I noticed it more in high school, but it was definitely more prevalent when I was in college. Did back and forth of being on medication, off medication, went to counselors, and like William said, that was kind of just all that we knew, all that I knew of how to take care of my body. I knew to help the depression. I knew that eating healthy and exercising helped me. I was in sports. I was a 3-sport athlete. And so that was kind of scheduled for me until I got to college. And then it was a lot harder to keep that going. So I could definitely tell the difference. So like William was saying about going into the doctor's office and only, having that short amount of time and getting prescribed, I always thought in the back of my mind, looking back going, why couldn't they give us eating plans? Why couldn't my doctor, you know, put me on an exercise program or set me up with an exercise trainer or whatnot and help me do that alongside? I just felt like that is kind of necessary, but never saw that. And you just kind of had to advocate for yourself and do the things that needed to be done. Fast forward to getting married, having 2 kids, teaching music, lots of different grade levels of general music and band. I'm currently teaching orchestra right now, so I've had a variety of experiences of teaching music, being a performer myself along with a teacher, on top of having perfection in my personality, I think added to the anxiety and depression. And then just situational things like when my sister passed away, that was definitely a process of grief and going through it. But again, roller coaster ride of ups and downs, hit me really hard. Where I came to the point where I needed plexus and I needed to take control of things was when I went through 4 years of my life in 2 different teaching situations that were high stress, demanding, big shoes to fill, and toxic situation. So basically I can sum it up as like from September, knowing that I was bored in a train and it wasn't going to stop until June, you know, with getting ready for performances and just expectations and learning new things at different school districts. And then just trying to come home and balance life, being mom with 2 kids. And so it just caught up with me, and the couch was my answer at night. I just needed to escape. I needed to turn off everything that was just rolling in my brain. I also relied on coffee and Starbucks for one or 2 years straight, fueling my body that way, knowing that that wasn't good. With both of my kids, I had 2 C-sections, and so I'm sure I can say I never got diagnosed for postpartum depression, but I'm sure there was a little spout of that for sure. Had some anger happening. And so just not feeding my gut properly led me to that. So yeah, after 4 years of feeling like I'm in fight or flight mode, cortisol levels, you know, being just pumped into my body, of probably not safe at all. Gaining weight, got up to 197 by the end, and just I needed something else, and just praying for an answer. And all of a sudden I'm scrolling through my Facebook and see this pink drink. Like, what is this pink drink? What is this pink drink? So I finally reached out to my cousin Stephanie Watt and got me signed up, and I've never looked back. I was so encouraged by all the stories. I would secretly be up here in my room at night just watching any Diamond documentary to, oh wow, it helps with IBS and it helps with arthritis and like just so many autoimmune diseases that I was just like blown away. I know we say it's not a miracle drug, but in my mind it was a miracle drug. Safe, healthy, natural. And so I just knew that I was waiting for my miracle, and I wanted my miracle. It took me probably 5 or 6 months before I really felt like, okay, I'm making a turn. I'm seeing some weight come down, and just knew that things were being healed from the inside out. Definitely mental clarity, brain fog went away. Good night, sweetie, love you. I definitely had some PTSD as well. And it wasn't until December until I knew that definitely went away, which was really cool, to not have to struggle with that. When I really noticed being on the products, my hands with taking ease, I could feel the inflammation just not there anymore. And I just I love doing this with my fingers going, I don't feel that anymore. And so there's just been so many benefits and so many wins. I have to also share that I took the baby step approach. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to make all these changes, all these habits that of not eating well, of not drinking water as much as I needed to, of exercising. So I was really gentle with myself and just one day at a time, what can I work on next? What can I work on next? And so I look back now going, I am so glad I took that mindset, because I think that's where a lot of people fail, and in giving up on themselves with these supplements, is because they're totally different. You cannot compare them from medication to these plant-based supplements. It takes 90 days for them to regenerate your cells, bare minimum. And so understanding that it is a new lifestyle change, a journey, and that it's not a quick fix, and that's not what I was looking for. So knowing that upfront was huge. So a part of the group that I was with Tammy, there was another offshoot of some mindset work that really made another big impact on me as well. The book Get Out of Your Head by Jeannie Allen. I have been a Christian all my life, and I know that the Lord has been with me every mountain and every deep valley, and love my worship music. That was probably my other free drug was my music, and singing and praising with him. This book really brought to light of the truths and the lies that we tell ourselves. And it is so huge to recognize what is truth and what is lies. And I know that I was self-sabotaging myself by believing in the lies. And I see it now. And I am not I'm not shameful. I am not putting more guilt on myself because of that. I can look back now and go, wow, I beat myself up way too much. I was so hard on myself, and it wasn't my fault. Knowing now that the gut-brain connection, that was a huge, once I saw the research and the numbers of 90% of your serotonin is produced in your gut, I was like, I've been doing this all wrong. I've been doing this all wrong. There's another way. There is hope. And so I am excited to continue to work on my goals, to lose more weight. I was even inspired to run a half marathon when I have not ever, that has not been on my bucket list, but I felt like God was calling me. World Vision came into our church one Sunday before COVID happened, and it was just like, they said, we can get you from the couch to the finish line. And that resonated with me a lot. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And I made that decision. I'm going to do it. And Tammy was inspired to kind of be my my running buddy and accountability partner with that. And a lot more other people have come on as well. And so it's been kind of fun to rally and encourage everybody to move their body and eat healthy and be a part of this amazing community. I've never, ever in all my life experienced the positiveness, the encouragement, the just within our own team, one team of the spiritual aspect that a lot of Christians are here and doing God's work, which is so super cool to be a part of. I am blessed beyond words, and I am excited to continue to bless others moving forward.
Love it, Heidi. Yeah, I want to touch on a couple points that she made. It wasn't a quick fix. So getting your gut fixed is not a quick fix. The serotonin. Most people do not realize serotonin is what is for mood. It is produced in the gut, and if your gut is not healthy, uptake of serotonin cannot occur to the brain. So people say, why does this work? That's why it works, because when you get your gut healthy, the brain can actually take up the serotonin that it needs to take up. You mentioned cortisol levels. So most of the people here, the MetaBurn, for you guys, the MetaBurn has been the lifesaver, the Vital Biome on the MetaBurn. MetaBurn is for adrenal and thyroid support. So it's getting those cortisol levels level instead of like the spikes in cortisol and the dips in cortisol that you guys were seeing before. So that's that huge thing for you guys. The PTSD, I'm glad you brought that up. PTSD is a huge thing for our military people. It's a huge thing for doctors and nurses. We deal with death on them all the time. It's a huge thing for anybody that's received trauma, abuse in their past, whether that's childhood sexual abuse or just mental or verbal abuse. So PTSD is a real thing. I have just seen so much from, baby, just that was a private message, baby. You need to, if you're going to put something in there, just do it to the group, okay? But PTSD, I've seen a lot of people come from PTSD that were up at night. I had one fella that said he would actually go out every morning at 2 a.m. in the morning. He would physically have to take himself outside because of the PTSD, and he no longer does that. And it is such a thrill to have somebody that couldn't sleep at night going outside at 2 o'clock in the morning from PTSD that no longer has to do that. So, and next up, this little gal went to church with us. I am so proud of her. This is gonna be the first time that she's sharing her story. So I know she's nervous. She's studying to go to medicine, and I know she's wanting to she's wanting to kick ass in the medical profession. Like, we need an overhaul in the medical profession so immensely. I've been 29 years in the medical profession. It has gone downhill dramatically. And Samantha just has a passion to turn that around and be the doctor that people need today. So Samantha, I'm going to unmute you, hon. You're up, girl.
Okay, hello. Thank you, Tammy, for inviting me. I'm a little nervous, and if you hear some laughs in the background, I have little siblings putting on a musical for my parents, but I'm hiding in my room to try to keep that minimal. So like she said, my name is Sammy. I'm 20 years old. I go down to school down in Carbondale to study medicine. I'm hopefully going on to medical school here in a couple of years, but through kind of my experience, which I'll talk about with anxiety, and then I had a diagnosis of PCOS, and also through my shadowing for medical school, I've kind of gotten a different outlook of what medicine is today, and kind of especially Heidi, what you said about the whole pushing off that 15-minute appointment, and seeing my experience with Plexus and being able to shadow and being eye on the wall and look and be like, this isn't right. This isn't medicine. This is checking lists. This is checking off symptoms on a list and matching them to the back of a prescription. This isn't health. This isn't the root of the issue. And I think it wasn't until I looked at medicine through something that wasn't my health and looked at it for how it's being treated to other people that it made me realize that maybe there was something else for me, that prescriptions weren't necessarily the answer. Again, I've also seen they have a play in life, they have a play in medication, but they aren't always the solution to the root of the problem. So for me, anxiety has always been a piece of my story ever since I was little. My parents were divorced. I moved an hour away. I even had really bad anxiety, like moving schools, like from elementary school to middle school, unknown situations, test anxiety, you name it. I had anxiety about it. I had anxiety about going to the grocery store with masks because it was a change in normal schedule. I know that sounds crazy, but it's just little things in life that it just all throughout my story, that it was just a part of it. And for me, everybody in my family pretty much has anxiety. My dad, my mom, all 4 grandparents. So I was kind of raised in an environment that it's just part of it. It's the story, it's part of who you be, and that's just how it's going to be. And I think in the past, that is a lot of, so, but so that was kind of my background. I went on to high school, and when I was 18, I was a senior, I ended up getting on that medicine because I followed what generations and my parents, what my grandparents have done. You have anxiety, you go talk to the doctor, they give you a prescription, 15 minutes later you leave. That's standard practice. And so I got on the medication, I took it every day, like I was instructed to. And just kind of not knowing, like that's just what I knew best at the time. So that's what I did. And I went on to college. Anxiety got worse. I'm a medical student. It's not a stress-free education. It is not an easy path. So extra pressure on top of already having anxiety issues kind of elevated the situation. When I was 19, after my freshman year of college, I went to the doctor for my yearly and got diagnosed with PCOS. Now, if you know much about PCOS, it's cysts on your ovaries that develop because of bacteria in your gut, from what we're saying. So everything I was eating was causing this to develop. And once I got diagnosed, I went and sat with the doctor, again, 15-minute appointment. And she was writing the prescription as she was telling me for a medication that she prescribes to everyone. And I was like, is there something else we can do? As a 20-year-old, I didn't want to be on metformin for the rest of my life for a disease that I could try. Again, does metformin have from what my studies, have metformin have a place in my disease? Absolutely. But let's try plan A before we make this plan A. Let's try to find the root of the issue. So I told my doctor I was going to try it for 6 months my way. My way was diet and exercise and with the intervention of plexus. And I said, if this doesn't work, I'm open to medication. I 100% back that idea. It's there for a purpose, but I want to try to heal me first. So I took my 6 months away. I take MetaBurn and Vital Biome, a mixture of it for my PCOS and my anxiety. I work out multiple times a week and I try to make healthy choices, but I still love chocolate chip cookies. But with the mixture of all that, I went back to the doctor and my blood sugar levels were better than normal. There was no need for medication. That the doctor even said if people were to take the extra step, that maybe we wouldn't have to write so many prescriptions, but we've come in a world where it's an easy fix. And I've seen it too with shadowing. People want easier, they don't want healthier. So a lot of those prescriptions, do they fix the symptoms? Do they fix the pain? Do they fix the symptoms of what we think? Yes. But is it fixing the root of the issue? No. Because if I would have taken that MetaBurn, I would have been on it for the rest of my life. But now my cysts are actually decreasing and there's no need for it because my blood sugars are normal. So again, I'm not trying to say that this is the solution to all fix, because as a medical student, that would be hypocritical of me. But I'm saying that our health is a basis before medication. How many times you go into the doctor and they ask you, are you sleeping at night? Are you drinking water? Are you exercising? What are you eating during the day? Did you eat breakfast before you came? How many times are we asking those questions before we say, when do you need the prescription due? And in my shadowing, none of them do. Very rarely do they ask, how are you feeling? Not what's wrong, but how are you feeling? So I think with my experience, with my own health issues, which we all have them, I feel like in today's day and age, but also with my passion for what I want to do, I think Plexus offers that reason to look at health, to look at our well-being instead of just a disease that's attached to our name on a piece of paper. So that's my story.
Love it. Thank you, Sammy, very much. So yeah, PCOS, hormones. You think of PCOS, you get the cysts on the ovaries. So that's just messing with hormones drastically. So mood, our daughter has had PCOS as well. And Sammy, I know you and Morgan both ran out of your MetaBurn, and both of you, Morgan would run to the mailbox every day waiting for her Metaburn to come. So, and I remember Sammy was like, oh, it's not coming. What am I going to do?
My mic's still on? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There was actually 2 weeks. So I took it for 6 months. And then we ordered it like I do every month. And there was an issue with shipping and it came 2 weeks late. So I was 2 weeks without medicine and my face broke out. I felt bad. I was bloated. All those symptoms I had before. And I was like, there's a reason I take this. I know now. And I even texted, I had to message Tammy and she had to help me fill in and fix it. But we eventually did get it. And I ended up with lots and lots of shipments. But it's rough. Your gut is so important and critical to your overall feeling and health that we can't ignore it, and nobody asks about it until there's an issue with the gut. And I feel like if we were to ask that at the beginning, we could maybe not skip so many steps, not cost so much pain, not increase the amount of medication and money. Everything's about money this day and age, but the gut is like plan A. And right now it's like plan Z, if you even get to there with doctors.
Right, exactly. And I think like most people don't even think about, the fact that the highest suicide rate is actually teenagers and elderly. Most people don't even think about that. The highest suicide rate is teenagers and elderly, and it's due to depression and anxiety. So if nobody's taking care of these kiddos and saying, listen, it's okay. It's okay that you feel this way. Let's figure out what's wrong and let's get to the root of it. I have people ask me all the time, can I put my teenager on Metaburn? It's because it is for the adrenal and thyroid, and it does boost the metabolism a little bit. And yes, I have a lot of teenagers on Metaburn. I have a 11-year-old that has pandas, which is she has Lyme disease and pandas. It's a very aggressive disorder for these children, and they get very aggressive, and we have her on it. She's doing quite well. So if they're 100 pounds or over, I'm like, yes, absolutely. Not 2 Metaburn, but do 1 Metaburn. And it really does help with that adrenal and thyroid issue, which helps with mood. So thank you for touching on it. Sammy, you did a great job, and you're going to be an amazing physician. And I love getting to talk science with you all the time. So thank you so much for sharing. Awesome. I'll meet you. All right. Next up, Tammy, Dugan, and I hung out in college. I grew up in Palmyra. I would come to Carlinville, spend summers with my grandma, and Michelle Hampton and Tammy Dugan were right down the road. So we got to hang out a lot. So we reconnected. We actually ended up finding out each other in Plexus, and we reconnected because of Plexus. So Tammy, if I can find you here, dear, I'll unmute you or unmute yourself. Oh, there you are. Okay. All right. Unmute, girl. Go.
Okay. So I'm going to start with when I was a baby, but I promise I'm not going to take you through all 52 years of my life. But I felt even as a youngster, my teenage years, I had a lot of depression, and I always kind of felt like it was something that I was born with. And I look back on it now on what I know about Plexus. And my mother told me that I was a very sick baby, happy and fun and that sort of thing, but I get sick a lot. I was prone to projectile vomiting, which is probably, those stories, one of the reasons why I never had children myself. So, but I did have a lot of tummy issues as a baby. And I just wonder if, my gut bacteria was off from the get-go, because from the time I can remember, especially as a teenager, I suffered in and out of depression quite a bit. And it wasn't circumstantial. It was a cycle. I would cycle in and out of it. And, as your teenager, you do have those sort of woe is me moments, and the world doesn't get me, and I'm going to put on my headphones and listen to AC/DC, and nobody understands. But mine had a little darker side, I feel like, than most folks, in that there were times that I didn't understand why I existed. I couldn't come out of it. I had thoughts in my brain that I could not control, that I was not worthy of things, that I was not good enough, that I hated everybody, I hated all people. And then I would lift out of it and be my normal cheerleader-y, school peppy, perky self. And I will say that, most of my friends throughout my life have probably would never know that I ever had any sort of issues with depression. And even, well into my adult life, people are like, I had no idea that you suffered in this way, because I could also hide it. And I got really good at hiding it because I felt like I didn't want to live that way. And if I was going to feel that way, I wasn't going to show it. And sometimes I was just trying to fake it till I make it. I did suffer a pretty decent, very severe clinical depression in the year that I was 25. I spent a good summer sleeping on my lunch breaks and then coming home from work and going straight to bed and sleeping until I had to get up for work the next morning. Finally, I realized after some testing for some other things that I'm like, oh my God, it's depression. I didn't even have a therapist back then. This is the early 90s. I just decided to pull myself up by my bootstraps, and I'm like, I'm going to go for a walk, and I'm going to go out and make myself be among friends, and I'm going to force this out of me, which I don't know how you do that, but I did it at that age. And that was kind of my strategy all the way up until about the time I was 40. The cycle would come. I would live in the cycle for a while. I always kind of took it as like, oh, this is my little mental break from the world. I would go to work. I would be happy, fun Tammy, do my job, and then come home and crash and hide from the world for about a month. And after about a month, I'd be like, all right, it's time to, snap out of it. I got married when I was 37. And no longer being a single girl living alone, I could no longer, I couldn't hide. I couldn't lay on the couch as Heidi would when I came home, because I didn't want to alarm Rob. I didn't want to make his life miserable. The only time we get to spend together is after work, and I'm going to be a zombie. That's not fair to him. So I would continue to try to fake it at home, which just prolonged it even worse. The negative thoughts would really spiral, and I really got into a big hole. And then at the same time, life starts happening. My grandma passed away. There was a lot of changes in my life. My job, I work in public relations and marketing for a really outstanding organization, Shriners Hospitals for Children, that does amazing things for kids. But what you may not know about nonprofit work is sometimes people think that that's, oh, it's nonprofit, it's no big deal. Let me just tell you, nonprofit work can be even more pressure and even harder work than other jobs and corporate jobs, because you believe in the mission so much that you will give extra time of yourself to move that mission forward. So I would be my happy-go-lucky person at work, and then I would come home and try to be cheerful for my husband. And I couldn't do it anymore. And it got to the point where I was not cheerful at work anymore. And in fact, it was not even just not cheerful at work. I was downright mean. And I was downright mean in a lot of places and really hating the world. I was also kicking back with the wine a lot, because that seemed to be something that would give me some relief. And little did I know, does that only make it worse? So bad habits abound, always trying to lose weight. When I hit 40, I was like, okay, I need to see a doc about this. And my doctor immediately said, I was having heart palpitations. I thought I was having a heart attack. Gave me a prescription for Lexapro and gave me some Valium for the anxiety, with the caveat that I had to go see a therapist. And I did. And the Lexapro and the Valium, even though I didn't use it that much, and I still never really did, was a bridge to get me to a place where I could listen to a therapist and understand what was happening with me. But we never did talk about gut health. And I've actually gone back to her since then and talked to her about it, and we're going to talk more. But really worked through my long-term issues with depression, and also my attachment to it, frankly. And I was clinging to it, kind of like an old friend, even though I didn't want to feel that way anymore, and I didn't deserve to feel that way. It was all that I really knew. So she helped me with the tools that I needed to get myself out of the hole. I did go off my antidepressants after a while. I felt like I had tools to do it, and I was determined. I went off of them and got mean again. And I remember my best friend on a vacation pulled me aside. She goes, I think you need to go back on your antidepressants. And I said, you don't know what the hell you're talking about, and I am just fine. So pleasant, So I went back on them. fast forward a few years, and I've gained 40 pounds. My stomach is a roiling mess. I'm feeling like I need to up my antidepressants because the cycles are coming back again. They're not nearly as bad, but I can feel it coming back again. And I started reading a friend of mine that I knew from my time in Warrensburg where I was working. She started talking about Plexus, and I thought, well, I could use this for weight loss, you know. And then I started seeing her posting things about how it helps depression. I'm like, well, that's a lot of hoo-ha. That there's no way. You have to have drugs in order to help depression. You got to have something produce that serotonin for you. I don't make it. Drugs have got to give it to me. So I took it for weight loss. And because I was chewing antacids and acid blockers like they were candy. I was miserable. I started the day with a Red Bull and a cigarette. So you can tell that I've had some super healthy habits, you know, really feeding that gut, Tam. So I just started with Slim and Accelerator because I was focused on the weight loss. What I didn't know is that Accelerator has a little thing called 5-HTP in it, which was a great boost for the old Tamster here. So the first week I was like, oh, instead of taking an afternoon nap, I can take an afternoon walk. And I just started feeling better energy-wise. And the weight started coming off. And that was really what I was focused on. And about 3 months later, it was right around Christmas time, I'd noticed that I hadn't cycled. Like I normally cycle in the fall. And it didn't happen. And I'm like, wait a minute, what happened here? I didn't go to my hole. And then all of a sudden I realized I'm like legit happy. Like I always have like a little blip around the first or second week of Christmas. My mom and I, for her birthday, always go Christmas shopping. And what we always do after that is go to my grandma's house and show her all the things that we bought for Christmas. And I always miss my grandmother terribly during that time. And instead of getting anxious about it, and I was joyous about it. I'm like, oh, let's tell funny stories about grandma and about Christmas time. And it brought me happiness. So then I started to realize, and also by that time I had added ProBio 5 and BioCleanse by the second month in. So I was already 2 months in on Triplex. And I had also added X Factor Plus because I knew I really needed a multivitamin. So I thought, well, this could be something. And a whole entire year went by, and I did not cycle once into depression. I only used Valium once in the middle of the night to get to sleep, and it was a time that I had drank too much red wine, and that causes anxiety for me in the middle of the night. So I was not using my Valium, and I felt like my antidepressant I didn't need to increase it. Now, I will say that in this past year, because of COVID, I have not cycled into any real depressions. And when I talk about a cycle, for me, that's staying in that place for more than 2 weeks. I've had a couple of days where I have felt the despair coming back, the sadness. I think also part of it is because I've been in perimenopause for a while. I think now I'm starting to go into real menopause. I added Vital Biome in January because anxiety was starting to creep up on me a little bit. After that first month, I didn't experience it ever again. I have not been happy this long in any part of my life that I can ever remember. It has been a miracle for me. I never thought this could happen. And I'm so grateful to Plexus for it. Now, I will say, I've not gone off my Lexapro. I don't have the courage to do that. I'm afraid that I'll go back to the place where my friend Patty said, I think you need to be back on your antidepressant, and then I snap at her. I just don't want to chance that again. It's too dark of a place for me. It's too mean of a place for me. And I only have, 30, 40 years left on this good earth, God willing. And I want to feel this great the whole time. So I'm going to stay with it. I don't have any side effects from it. It's not super expensive. I think it's costing me $2 every 90 days. So for now, I don't see a need for me to go off of it. But I can tell you that the plexus has kickstarted it for me. And this spring, when I started to feel I know now I've had enough therapy, enough tools, and enough good times on plexus that I know what thought it is that starts the depression. And the thought, that very first thought that pops into my brain, I don't think it's my subconscious telling me. And it says, it always says, I hate everything. And the minute my brain says those words, I know that I need to start watching out for it. And if it happens longer than a couple of hours or a couple of days, I actually just up my ProBio 5 and up my BioCleanse, and I might take a couple of slims a day. And then I go back to, all right, have I had any alcohol? How much sugar have I had? Have I been walking? Have I been too sedentary? Those kinds of things. And I can solve this through healthy habits and my mental toolbox. And the gift of my life by far. And I've also lost 40 pounds. So that makes me even happier.
Love it. Love it.
That's my story.
And Tammy, I think that was a good to touch on with the COVID, because even I, as a nurse, when COVID started, there was some anxiety that creeped up in me. I mean, I think all of us had anxiety when this came. Pastor Stephen Furtick had a great message when he said, we didn't get to mourn what we lost. We lost life and we didn't get to mourn that. And I thought that was very critical. It was like, yeah, we just didn't get to mourn what we'd all had known as life.
Yeah.
So,
And I am a natural homebody. I'm an only child. I love to be home. I also travel for my job, and I'm very social and bubbly, and I do get my energy from other people. Being home was sort of I will say, as somebody who's had lifelong depression, and even though I don't suffer from it anymore, there's still always that, like, I wish the world would slow down with me for a little bit and just give me a break. And I felt like that's what I finally got that wish. But I see kids and families a lot in my job. And, I do a lot of, marketing, advertising, writing stories, and, meeting with people and all that stuff that I really enjoy. But the juice in my job is being with the Shriners and being with the kids and families. And to have that cut off so suddenly really was tough.
yeah. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Tammy. I just love you. I thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks for having me. I feel honored.
I love it. I mean, to just give hope with that is just, depression is such a dark, like you said, it's such a dark place. And I've watched Bill go there. So I know my husband wanted to add one more thing in there. So let me unmute Bill here real quick. All right. Oh, okay. There you go. Oops, sorry, babe. All right. Oh, hang on. Okay.
Am I back?
Yeah, sorry. I think we were playing tag on unmuting you.
The other evening at the convention that we were at, we had the opportunity to listen to Susie Orman, who's probably one of the most famous women, not only in books, but also in terms of a speaker. And I remember her going through the things about how to prepare yourself so that you're ready for anything that comes. And I remember her saying that we all need to have 8 months of money saved so that when these things happen, we can pay the bills that we need to pay. So that's a savings. That's kind of something that we all need to be thinking about. But it relates to our gut, in that what happens when we start weeding and feeding, and then we are prescribed an antibiotic, My 8 months of working to better my gut health is used up in a matter of moments. They just wiped out my savings account. And one of the things about antibiotics that we have to remember is that it wipes it out in a matter of days. 8 months of building, 8 months of working hard. Gut health is critically important, and we need to be so aware of what antibiotics and other, as Tammy was just talking about, bad habits or habits that we have that actually change the environment that these bacteria and these organisms that are living in our gut, all because of a decision that we make. So not only do we need to save up our 8 months of dollars to get us through tough times, but we and I'm 69 years old, and many of the people that are on here tonight are not of that age. So now is a good time to start saving up gut health by using the ProBio, by using the products that will help you get through when suddenly you're hospitalized and you didn't have that planned. You had no idea that you were going to be on IV antibiotics or you're going to be taking antibiotics by pill. Last night in the Zoom call, one of the gals that was on the Zoom call was actually a lady who was at the hospital receiving IV antibiotics, talking to your Zoom people about where she was at. And I'm thinking to myself, they've used up all of her savings.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so funny because she had literally just started her products 2 days ago, and she was just beginning a urinary tract infection, and then we were like, oh no, antibiotics, they're gonna be starting back at ground zero. It's like, no, don't do it. And like Samantha said, there's a place for everything. There's a place for sepsis and those type of things. You have to have that antibiotic, but at all costs, if you can up your probiotic and you can kill that bacteria that's invading your body on its own, why not do it in a holistic approach where you don't destroy the good bacteria? So I'm going to probably stop here because the Zoom usually lasts an hour and it will cut me off. So, but you guys, thank you all. You guys all have no idea how much this helps and impacts so many lives, because it is the dreaded thing that nobody wants to talk about. So I love you all. And I thank you for being so vulnerable and so honest with us and sharing your hearts. I love you guys. Thank you guys. And I'll have this recording up tomorrow of everyone, okay? Bye guys.